Let me guess, you're sick and tired of paying rent and supporting someone else's dream of financial independence. You'd rather buy your own place so that your monthly payments build equity in your own asset, or maybe you're ready to switch roles and become your own landlord and receive your own rent checks. Well, you came to the right place. Today, I'm going to help you budget for your first home. In 10 minutes, I'll give you absolutely everything you need to make your dream of buying a home a reality. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to research in your chosen market, how to find out how much of a home you can afford, hidden costs to budget for, and most importantly, how to budget for your first home. Budgeting for your first home is the biggest hurdle in the whole home buying process, and this is the #1 thing that prevents potential homeowners from ever buying. Hey, I personally guarantee that I'll make this process so simple for you that if you don't feel completely ready to start the home buying process at the end of this video, feel free to just spam me in the comments letting me know how terrible of a job I did. Alright, so for those of you whose first time it is here, my name is Isaac. I'm a travel nurse with over 4 years of experience, and I recently purchased my first home in Atlanta, Georgia. I went from knowing literally nothing about real estate last fall to buying my first live-in fixer that I plan on either selling or renting out to medium-term renters in the next 2 years. I'm not a real estate expert, but I have an obsession with being the most informed person in the room, especially when it comes to my assets, whether it's my stock portfolio or now my own property. I'm literally obsessed with knowing everything from cash flow, potential, to infrastructure considerations, to even neighborhood demographics. Anyways, I pulled my Instagram followers and this was by far the most requested video. So I figured I'd just share my knowledge with you while it's fresh, and honestly I feel like one of you, given that I was just in your shoes months ago, wondering how the hell am I supposed to afford my first property? I'm gonna give you a super simple 4-step process that will start you on the journey to budgeting for your first home and ultimately cut out all the confusion that usually is a deterrent for potential homeowners. First up, you're going to want to do some research in your chosen market. Are you looking to buy in your neighborhood, across town, or maybe even in another state? Look on Zillow or Redfin and start filtering properties. Do you want to buy an apartment, townhome, multifamily, or single-family home? Ideally, how many bedrooms or bathrooms would you like? Do you have any square footage requirements? And what about parking? Do you need to cover parking space? This list of filters might as well be endless. Whatever, just go play around with it, then start to take note of how much these properties cost. Write down a range of prices based on your requirements and save this number for later. Secondly, you'll want to find out how much of a loan you're eligible for. There are 3 ways to go about this, ranking from the least to the most amount of work. Easiest way is to go to bankrate.com, and I've linked that below. Plug in some numbers and you can find a rough estimate of how much of a home you can afford. The numbers that you input here are kind of similar to what a bank would ask from you, but from my own experience, these calculators often overestimate how much you can afford. So just use this as a general frame of reference. Second, I'd recommend reaching out to a real estate agent and having them calculate this number for you. This requires a bit more work because it involves reaching out to another human. I know, it can be scary, right? Anyways, this will definitely provide you with a more accurate number. I remember asking one of my old coworkers who doubles as an agent, and he plugged my financial information into his software and gave me a really accurate figure that was only slightly above what the bank approved me for. Third, and perhaps the most time-consuming way, is to get pre-approved by a bank. I spent about 30 minutes on the phone with my mortgage banker and another 30 minutes submitting the application. I'm going to highly recommend this step for those of you that are the most serious about buying your first home. It requires a little more time and effort, but here's why I recommend this route the most. Remember when I said that your mortgage banker can pre-approve you? This is sometimes confused with the term pre-qualify, but being pre-approved involves a conditional commitment to grant you the mortgage. It's the most advantageous in the buying process, especially in today's market where speed is the key to landing a great deal. So you can get pre-qualified really quickly. This is the most basic step because the information provided is self-reported by you. So is it super accurate? This really doesn't involve submitting pay stubs or your W-2. They don't pull your credit here, you know, the process where you get a slight ding on your credit report. This provides a ballpark estimate and doesn't hold too much weight compared to a pre-approval. A pre-approval involves submitting a loan application. You need to submit various financial documents including proof of employment, W-2, pay stubs, and rental history. This provides a definitive answer as to how much you're approved for, as well as gives you an interest rate. Now, if you've already done your research in your respective markets and you know where you want to buy and see yourself buying in the next 3 months, get pre-approved now. If you're completely new to the whole process, plan on starting your market research right after this video, or at least 4 months away from buying that first house. Then your second step will be to get pre-qualified. You can get pre-qualified or pre-approved from either a lender such as a credit union or even your own bank. Quick note on how much of a home you can afford. Don't just assume that because you're eligible for a certain amount that you can afford those monthly payments. For example, you may qualify for a $400,000 home, but with 5% down, you may not be able to afford those $2,500 monthly mortgage payments, not to mention property taxes and utilities. All right, halfway there. Third, I've got to fill you in on some hidden costs that you probably haven't heard of before. So by now you know how much you are qualified for or are approved for at this point. You probably know what percentage you'll be able to put down on the property. For most of you, this number will probably be around the 5% range, so I'll just stick with that number for the purposes of today's video. So let's say you're approved for a $400,000 loan. 5% down is $20,000, but guess what? You need more cash than that to close. There's this umbrella term for all these additional costs associated with buying a home, and these are referred to as closing costs. A general rule of thumb is to expect the cash you need at closing to be double that of your down payment, especially if it's in that 5% range. That's right, closing costs in this example will usually be double the amount of your down payment or an additional $20,000, bringing the amount you need to bring to the closing table to $40,000. Now these fees include taxes, attorney fees, title insurance, homeowner's insurance, appraisal, among other expenses. All right, if you've completed these first steps, you're doing great. You've done so much research already and might be exhausted. Pat yourself on the back, you've done a lot of hard work that's laying the foundation for the last step. Here's the point in the video where we start talking about how you can budget for your home. Here's the truth. You'll need a budget if you don't have one already. You need to see a clear picture of where your paycheck is going. This is absolutely essential if you're ever going to afford your first home, unless you got lucky and have someone who's going to buy the home for you or foot the cash for your down payment and closing costs. Now, I'm going to assume that most of you don't have that privilege, so your budget will be your best friend. Now, if you have your own budgeting software or keep track of your expenses already, props to you. I know that's a lot of initial work off the bat to set that up and input all of your expenses. Now, if you don't have a budget yet, I highly recommend the Best Budget tool. I created this as a newlywed supporting my family on one income. I realized that there was a lack of budgeting tools that had you start the process by having you brainstorm your ideal financial future first. This budget tool employs the use of a top-down approach, encouraging you to first start conceptualizing your ideal life, including your ideal income source to the car you want to drive. It then helps you save for these goals by dividing your income into three major categories: needs that are absolutely essential to living, including rent, food, and car payments; needs that fall under the wants category, including dining out and fun money; and investments. I made it super easy to track all of your expenses on this spreadsheet, and I've included some of the most common expenses as well as some you may not even know that you have. The Best Budget tool empowered us to not only pay our bills as newlyweds on one income, but also to take vacations and to save for our first property. I am convinced that this tool will allow you to live your best life while still being responsible with your money. In fact, if the Best Budget tool doesn't change your life, I'll give you your money back guaranteed. Make sure to check it out at the link in the description. Right now I'm running a limited time sale for $20 off, so make sure to take advantage of it, especially if you don't have a budget yet. So after you list your expenses, how much is left over at the end of the month? How much can you save towards your down payment and closing costs? Will you be able to save enough in 2 years, 1 year, maybe even 6 months? I started this budget with my wife in September, right after our wedding, and in 6 months we were able to save enough for the down payment and closing costs. Anyways, I hope this video simplified the whole budgeting process for you. If you feel empowered to budget for your first home and get started on the path to never paying rent again or being a landlord, give me a like, and if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing as well. Hey, I love putting these videos out there for you guys, so if any of you have personal finance questions or want to know more about my home buying process, feel free to drop a comment below. Anyways, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Peace.